But I am going to be the most controversial I've ever been on the VFX Notes show and say that is the most overblown,
Oh my God.
non-fantastic part of the whole series that I am convinced Netflix thought was going to be huge.
Yeah.
I just wasn't blown away by this at all. I have to be really honest.
No,
I didn't find that so crash hot.
I get it.
Not the visual effects. I mean the actual moment.
Yeah. This podcast is brought to you by Backlight. Backlight Creative enhances the entire creative project lifecycle. For pre-production, there's Celtx. For scriptwriting, beatboards, shot lists, and planning. And Backlight Gem, a narrative design platform for games and VR. For post-production, we've got ftrack Studio to manage creative projects with custom pipelines and reviews with cineSync and ftrack Review for high-res, real-time media collaboration. To manage your assets, connect your own storage to Iconik, a scalable cloud-based media asset management platform. You can learn more at backlight.co. And now on to the show.
Hi everyone, welcome to this latest episode of VFX Notes. I'm Ian Fales from Befores and Afters, and as always, I'm joined by Hugo Guerra from Hugo's Desk. Hi there, Hugo.
Hey Ian, how you doing? Hello everyone.
I'm great. Things are great in Australia. Awesome to be with you again, Hugo. Each time we've done an episode on Stranger Things, I've made a terrible joke about being down under in the Upside Down. And so to be consistent, I've just said it again. It's not a joke. It's just a way of saying it again. I apologize.
I like your jokes.
But that's where I am.
They're good.
Yeah. We're back for our fourth outing on the series, of course, because season 4 happened this year. What we're really excited about is that you'll have a playlist, listeners, of the Stranger Things episodes of VFX Notes, which is really cool, Hugo, right? I'm really stoked that we've done them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for everyone that doesn't know, like, we have a playlist with all the episodes of Stranger Things. We actually, I've created quite a few playlists for the show. We have a playlist with just Marvel shows. We have a playlist with retro episodes. We've done multiple playlists. I'll be sure to just look for them on Hugo's Desk's YouTube channel. They're all there. And yeah, I'm really excited because season 4 just came out. I mean, eventually we'll do a season 5 episode as well to wrap the thing up, but that won't be until like 2 years from now or something. It will be a long time ago. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk with you about this, Ian, because this is, the biggest season really. And I mean, huge. Like literally the biggest season since it's like so long. But yeah, let's get this going. Yeah.
Before we do, I always want to have a quick shout out to our sponsors, our Patreon supporters, and also, of course, just our watchers and listeners. You can get the episodes early and ad-free by being a Patreon supporter for Hugo's Desk or Befores and Afters. We really appreciate all the support, and we especially love people who like and subscribe us, right?
Yes, absolutely. Please consider that. Consider subscribing to Hugo's Desk. We're trying to reach 100,000 subscribers. The reason for that is so that the channel can get certified by YouTube, and also we can be included on the lists of channels that they have. We basically get more support and more visibility if the channel can reach 100,000. And please consider that. I just discovered just the other day that about only 50% of our viewers subscribe. Go for it, just subscribe. It's completely free. And then you get the shows always, that you always get a notification when the show shows up. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Hugo. Season 4.
Oh,
I think audiences of VFX Notes have discovered that you are slightly obsessed with the influences and homages, and I'm not sure obsessed is in a good way, but all I really want to know is what you thought of season 4 to start with.
well, I'll be honest. Like, I think it was good. I think it was fine. I felt that it was a bit too long. I know about what you're saying about the comments. I get quite a few very heated comments on YouTube because of this. I'm okay with that. Come on, just keep going. I like to answer and I like to banter with them. It's fine, but I thought this was too long. I don't believe you need to have episodes of 90 minutes and episodes of 2 hours and things like that. This is so huge. Like, the last episode is 2 hours and a half. It's like this became a chore a bit, and I think for me, it became a bit too slow and the pace was a bit off. I feel like a lot of things could have been trimmed in this show. I think a lot of things that were not important should have been cut, and amazing visual effects. We'll talk all about that. I mean, I think it was probably the best season on visual effects, although season 3 was amazing. But I still prefer season 3 in terms of story and film and in terms of pace. I think season 3 is the peak so far in terms of cohesiveness and storytelling, the horror elements as well, the villain that shows up on season 3. I thought that was better, but it was okay. I mean, I don't hate the season 4, but what about you? What did you thought?
Well, I definitely thought it was too long, and part of that is that, of course, with Netflix, it all comes at once, except here in season 4, it was split between volume 1 and volume 2. This is my thing. I actually think Stranger Things would totally work as week by week.
Yeah.
I think it could be cliffhanger, it could be shorter episodes, it could be more episodes. But this is obviously not what Netflix is doing. But that's the trouble I had watching Netflix watching season 4 all in one go, was I had got very used to being very episodic in some of the Disney Plus series, especially Star Wars ones, and The Boys on Amazon and a few others, that it almost felt a bit weird to watch everything in one go. And that, is actually not really a review of the show, but more about the experience of watching it. And
it's too much. It becomes too much.
Yeah.
I rushed it. I rushed it because I wanted to see it because I didn't want to get spoiled on Twitter. And man, it's too long for you to rush this thing. It's like, I don't know how many hours it's in together, but it must be like 12 hours or something. I don't know. Like, it's a lot.
And look, I guess one of the challenges they had is that they have created some really compelling characters, and they definitely didn't seem to want to leave any of them behind.
No.
So whereas, I mean, what I mean is you spend a lot of time with Hopper and you spend a lot of time with the kids, but all the different kids in different locations. During the series, both volume 1 and 2, I just sort of felt like when that happens, you're watching some segment with Hopper or whatnot, and you just want to go back to see what the kids are doing.
Yeah.
When they're shorter, sharper episodes, that happens. When they're trying to give each actor plenty of screen time, and they certainly did here, I just thought, my mind trailed off a bit too much.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I feel it's funny what you're saying about the weekly thing. I actually really enjoy that now. I'm now watching the new Game of Thrones, the House of the Dragon, and I'm really enjoying the thing week by week, and because you get to linger on the episode and you get to think about it and have a kind of a thought about it, and you have time to think about it. And the funny thing is about Stranger Things, they often have cliffhangers on the end of the episodes. But what's the point? Because Netflix automatically starts the other episode, so it's like the cliffhanger was pointless, really. I think I know what you mean, and I think it would have been more beneficial for the storytelling for it to be weekly, and also obviously it would have been more beneficial financially for Netflix, because then they would have hang on people for 9 weeks instead. So I think, that was the main thing. I guess, but it's okay, you know.
Yeah. Having said that, Netflix often tells people that this is one of the most watched series and shows, and you know.
No, absolutely. Months on, it's been on. It was out in March and July, and it's still on the top 10 on the UK list. I'm sure it's still on the top 10 on all the world list. Everything else comes in and out, but they are always there on the first place, second place, first place, and second place. But yeah, no, this is a massive show, man. This is the most expensive season of all of it. 30 million per episode. That's like a movie. 30 million per episode. 270 million on the entire show. I just, this is astronomical, and it's a huge affair. But yeah.
I will say that they know that this is their hot property, right? Like there's a enthusiasm and a confidence behind it. And my friends and I and the greater social media world were talking about Stranger Things forever. So it isn't like it went away quickly. The Kate Bush songs as well, it created some extra interest, and, people are now obsessed with that song. So a lot of good things came of it in terms of audience experience. I just wanted it to be back to the old days of Stranger Things, really.
Well, you asked me also about the people being obsessed about me talking about the influences as well. Like, obviously, yes. Like always, like all seasons.
Here we go, everybody. Here we go.
Okay, I'm gonna be short this time, but I'm just like saying that for me the problem still exists. They still take too many influences and take too many homages on the literally almost borderline ripping off. So I'm still stand with my opinion. It hasn't changed, even with the messages that everyone sent me. I don't usually change my mind that quickly. But in terms of influences, obviously, I guess the biggest influence is Freddy Krueger and Nightmare and Elm Street. I mean, the whole thing with Vecna is literally Freddy Krueger. Not only that, but also the bodies being mangled during the sleep. Also them being lifted to the air. That's also from Freddy Krueger as well. But then you have a lot of things. You have like hints to Primal Fear with Vecna and Henry Creel, or The One, or Peter Ballard, or whatever his name is. You also have like Hellraiser, of course, the composure and presence of Vecna when he's walking around. It really reminds you of the big villain of Hellraiser as well. Obviously, you have War Games again for the second time, this time with the hacking with Susie. You have Carrie, both with the chocolate milkshake and also the red and also the prom. You have Indiana Jones with their flight and their airplane. You have Pretty in Pink, where literally there's a person on the show that is dressed like Pretty in Pink. Like Vicky, the love interest of Robin, is Pretty in Pink. You have Breakfast Club with Eddie, and Eddie looks almost like Jude Nelson's character. I mean, okay, and then of course, Kate Blanchett. I'm gonna shut up. It never ends. It never ends. I'm just going to say this to close down this conversation. Guys, this is not as original as everyone thinks. It's all coming from somewhere else. But this is a great opportunity for you to all go and watch these films, because they are amazing, all of the influences that they use,
Yes. But do you think, Hugo, just stepping back a little bit from the edge, do you think by season 4 at this point, it's now those homages are there for fun, to like point and go, oh, Pretty in Pink, oh, War Games. Yeah,
they got away with it, and so now they're not going to stop, because they got away with it. No one called them out on the beginning, and so now they're just going to do it and do it.
They talked about it from the beginning.
I know,
that's not a secret.
That's the shocking, for me, that's the shocking part of all of it. That's the shocking that they got away with it. They said all of these things, and they've literally ripped all these things out, and they still didn't got called off by it. I'm sorry. I'll still stand to that conversation.
All right.
No. The show is like a pop culture fest. It's amazing. You also have, of course, like you said, Kate Bush and Metallica, and also Dungeons and Dragons board games and VHS
True.
video stores, and it is a beautiful show to behold, and very beautifully shot again. Cinematography is on point once again. Curious little fact. The first season shot with an Alexa, not with a Red, so they switched to the Alexa for some reason. Not that it makes any difference when you look at the show, but it is a funny thing that the Alexa is now becoming the standard, really. I'm seeing less and less shows using the Red, which is peculiar, how things kind of turned around a little bit with that, you know.
I feel like, anecdotally, I've often heard VFX supervisors quoting cinematographers saying that DOPs feel like the Alexa, the Arri Alexa, feels like film.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, let's not get into a 2-hour debate about that because you can probably push any digital imagery to feel like film.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I've heard multiple times, Hugo, about the Alexa.
Yeah. It's about the sensor and the quality of the color and the midtones. I think it is an astonishing camera. They've developed it for a long time, and they do take their time. Just now, for the first time in 10 years, they made a new sensor with the Alexa 45. So I think it's just the way that it recreates color and contrast in midtones. It is different from the Red, absolutely. It looks slightly different because I've shot with all of these cameras and they all look a bit different. As the same way the Blackmagic camera also looks a bit different. The way that it resolves the pixels and resolves the noise. And yes, it is true. The Alexa does feel a bit more filmic. It's a bit softer, and it's a bit more. It has a higher dynamic range. It reminds of film because of that. The more dynamic range you have, the more it looks like film. Yeah. So I think it has to do with that. But it's also about the lenses as well. And again, the lenses could be fitted on any camera really. So this conversation is a bit mute. I feel like the choosing the Arri Alexa has more to do with the fact that the Arri company has a past of support, and they are so ingrained into the film industry that it's much easier to get support from a big company like Arri than you get support from a smaller company like Red. So it's a bit. I think it has to do with that, and not to mention the legacy of Arri with all the lights and all the rest of the equipment that they have as well. And the legacy of older cameras of film as well. So it makes sense that the Alexa is a choice, I think, you know.
Yeah, definitely dominating at the moment. Feels like it. Yeah, let's jump into the visual effects. And there's probably a real standout effect in season 4, isn't there, Hugo? And it's Vecna.
Yeah.
Right? The monster of the season, the way that this was brought to life, of course, was very much pushed as being full-on man-in-suit creature effects, overseen by Barry Gower. Let's talk about that. But I always want to keep my mind on the fact that there's a lot of digital augmentation with Vecna as well. But going into the practical side of it, Hugo, I think, this is something the show really pushed, right? Especially in the marketing.
Yeah. No, the brothers kind of talk about that. They always wanted it to be all practical, the whole show. They always wanted that. That's why we have a man on suit on the Demogorgon on season 1. So they went back to that, to the kind of like legacy of Freddy Krueger and Helm Street, and they even have the actor on it on the show as well. And Barry Gower did an amazing job, him and his team. It looks stunning. It's stunning. This is a full body cast, obviously to avoid making it look like a rubber suit, because it doesn't look like a rubber suit at all. It's amazing how flexible it is. No. They use this really thin latex, which is surgical latex, to be really, really attached and really compressed to the body. And they basically show this all in the behind the scenes. You're going to be watching it while we're talking. They kind of like used sections of it by using floating on a container with water, so they could separate all the parts. So they made it as a full suit, and then by using soap and other ingredients to separate the parts using a floating technique. They could separate all the parts, and then they had 25 parts as a jigsaw puzzle. This way, when the actor is moving and walking, it doesn't really nothing attaches to itself. It also becomes a bit easier to apply to the actor. No, but this is amazing. It's very heavy. just the head and the shoulders are like 10 kilos. It took him 7 hours to apply this to him. Like,
yeah, this
it's
always
insane.
blows me away. You know, whenever actors or in the behind the scenes you hear about a 4-hour makeup treatment or whatever, it's like, what do you mean? Like, so if the shoot time is 8 a.m., like, are you really getting there at 4 a.m.? Yes.
Jesus. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And then to hear this was 7 hours for some of the applications, it still blows me away to hear that.
Yeah. It's insanity. And his presence on set because of this is amazing. There's a moment on the behind the scenes that I love. That's when Vecna is killing Fred. Fred is the second victim, the one with the glasses, the little kid with the glasses. And he's walking through a tunnel, and you see just the eyes reflecting like cats. And you just see the silhouette of him, and he's walking towards this kid. It is mind-blowing how it works. The suit just works so well on those shots. Yeah. And I think, they did an amazing job. Not to mention there's a mechanical hand as well, which is really cool, with all the fingers and which they practice a lot, and the actor really did a great job with that. It's a real hand. There's dentures as well. I mean, this thing is really complex.
Yeah. and we should say that I believe in most, if not all cases, it's the actor who has turned. It's the actor playing the character who has turned into Vecna.
Yeah.
Performing the character, which is Jamie Bauer, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not as stunt performer. I mean, perhaps it is for some scenes. Or it's not just a stand-in. That is not always the case with these creature films.
No.
Where they don't necessarily need the actual actor to be that.
And in fact, there's a lot of famous stories where the actor's not even there anymore, and they're just doing things with the stunter and stunt guy. And
sure.
Yeah, that's true. It really makes a difference because he was there and his voice was there. No, I feel like this is an amazing achievement in terms of Barry Gower's work, and also the actor Jamie on it, with his voice, his stamp, and everything. But obviously, there's an enormous amount of CG on top, and I just. Unfortunately, dear viewers and listeners, there's not a lot of breakdowns out there for that, because I felt a little bit that the narrative has been to just talk about the suit as a 90% practical, like they say it on the interviews many times, 90%. And so, unfortunately, there's not a lot of breakdowns, but there is a substantial amount of this suit which is completely done in CG. Especially when you look at all the vines floating on his body, like a bunch of vines floating around, which, unfortunately, there's no way you can use the suit as a reference, but you have to completely match move and replace completely the body. And in fact, I have talked behind the scenes with people that worked on this show, and there are shots that are full CG. Like, there are shots actually where they only left them out, and there's only 10% of the shoot on the shot. And so I really feel that we keep talking about this on the show. I would have hoped that we've reached the point where practical and digital are working together. Let's talk about that openly. Unfortunately, it always leans into the practical, and the conversation is never about the digital. I mean, I guess because it's not romantic, it's not pretty. It's much nicer to see an interview with Barry Gower than seeing 20 people inside a sweaty room with some monitors. Obviously, it's less romantic to see that, but there are hundreds of people working on this. Hundreds of people working on this.
Yeah, none of that surprises me at all, that many of the featurettes pushed by Netflix and where interviews were done about Vecna pushed the practical side. There were even some tweets that seemed to say it was all practical, and we then, I did an interview with the visual effects team on Volume 1, which of course, talked about Barry's amazing work, but then also talked about Rodeo's work on their character, including what they did do with the vines, which was, I'm sure many of them are CG, but also some UV texture crawling work being done. I am one of those people, Hugo, that really hates the way that practical is pushed at the expense of digital visual effects. I guess I'm just not surprised anymore.
I know, but it's sad. It's sad. It just makes me sad. Go for it.
I think what's also interesting is the other way to talk about it is that, well, how great that they had a person in the suit and makeup effects there. It always serves as great lighting reference. It serves as performance for the other actors. It's the basis on which any kind of CG augmentation or replacement or replication is done. So that's like a great thing, no matter what, right? That they do it. Yeah. And then because it's a creature show, there's going to be scenes where Vecna's running, being lifted up on wires, but also just lifted up with his own vines. Like, of course that needs CG. So it's not like we have to have that conversation about, why didn't they lift Vecna up 40 meters into the air for real? Like, the point of having these digital visual effects tools is to get the shots that are imagined, right?
Yeah, no.
And so, there's that side of it too, which is it's not CG, and you're not saying this, Hugo. It's not practical versus CG. It's just whatever needs to be used for the shot.
No. I'm saying that I wish that it was talked about as a combination of the two things.
Sure.
And I know Barry, as many times on his interview, said that it was. Like, I think...
He has.
He has. Now, you hear him out. The problem is not him. The problem is not the production. I feel that the problem is the way that these featurettes are done by people that have no understanding of how this works. The buzzword of practical is definitely more trendable than visual effects. And unfortunately, most people that are dealing with social media accounts, they don't have any idea of how this is done. And I also feel that sometimes we are also not very good at this conversation because we all scream and we all get upset in the visual effects community like, oh my God, this is not practical, this is G. And unfortunately, I think both sides need to be better at explaining both parts, because it becomes really problematic when you have people thinking that it was all for real, and also it becomes problematic when some people think it was all digital. And I just want more clarity and transparency. I wish that we didn't had. You don't even, like, this, Ian, but the audience doesn't even imagine the amount of behind the scenes that are recreated and tweaked for them to become a behind the scene. I'm not saying that this happens on Stranger Things, but a lot of times we've talked already on the show about green screens becoming desaturated. That's the first thing.
Sure. Yeah.
But I've also talked with a lot of people that told me that they actually sometimes do cleanup on the behind the scenes. It's like removing wires and removing certain things. And I've even talked with people saying that they had to remove wires and put other wires to make it look like it was a different effect. And the people telling me that they've actually left the plate raw, but left the beautification on the face of the actor, only that, so that no one knew that was done. There's so many. I feel that this is malpractice. I feel that this is like lying, marketing, and there are regulations on marketing on all the other things. You can't do an ad lying about things. I just feel that we need to be more transparent, and I feel some of these companies are literally lying on their behind the scenes, and they shouldn't be allowed to do that. And I feel that this is more communication is more important, and we try to do our best. We always flag it on the show. We always talk about it, and we always tweet about it. Everyone tweets about it, most of the VFX supervisors, and hopefully it gets better. But I just want everyone to understand that when you hear someone saying that Vecna was 90% real, it wasn't. But I'm not saying Barry is lying. Most likely, Barry doesn't know even what happened after what he's done.
Sure.
Because there is so much visual effects that happens and so much stuff that happens behind the scenes on dailies that no one will ever know because it's NDA protected. And so a lot of times, even the filmmakers and the people that worked on the suit and even people that did the practical part might even think that what they're seeing is what they shot, but it's actually been completely replaced in CG, because at some points, I've been there already doing VFX. We start with everything real, and then progressively we get notes and more notes and more notes, and we start replacing parts and replacing parts and replacing parts. At some moment, the notes are too strong and too big, and we need to replace it to full CG, and then it just switches. But no one sees the switch because it looks the same. It's just that to respond to the notes, you need to switch it. It's like Tom Holland's, stunt on Uncharted. It looks like he did it, but when you really go frame by frame, you see that his entire body was replaced. But it didn't started as we're gonna replace his body. It didn't start like that. It kind of evolved to that. I think that's what happens,
And if you think about the shot, it benefited, say the Uncharted one you just said, it benefited from the stunty or Tom doing it.
Absolutely.
Because how else would visual effects know where to start? I mean, that's so common, like more common than, yes, I think the lay audience realizes that they try and do, of course they try and do as much as they can. But it's based on budget, on time. And then, as you say, when it gets into editing and post, the lighting might change. And so you're effectively changing the lighting on Vecna's skin. Oh, well, to change the lighting on Vecna's skin, we actually have to have a digi-double version of Vecna.
Yeah.
And actually, that's not something I necessarily know was done, but it's certainly done in other productions. So, I think you're absolutely right, Hugo.
It's like you said. It's just like you said. Obviously, without having the suit from Barry's team, without shooting it with the actual actor, none of that would have looked that good. Because if they would have done this entire character in full CG, it would have never looked this good. I can guarantee you it would never have looked this good. Because the suit pushes the reality into the CG, completely.
Yeah. And then when you look at the way the actors interact with Vecna, like Max in the Mind Slayer, she looks scared of Vecna. And then also not scared, right? Like when she's sort of fighting back a bit more. And that happens in other sequences too. So there's a clear benefit of what they did here, what Barry did here, and what the Duffers decided to do with Vecna. I'm all praise for it.
Absolutely.
But the messaging is odd here, and it's odd in other shows too, in terms of practical versus digital. Just while we're still talking about Vecna, though, Hugo, there is a sequence with him in the volume 2 of season 4 where he's on fire.
Oh my God.
That is honestly one of the most compelling moments in a Stranger Things episode I've ever seen, and some of the best use of fire that I've seen in recent times. Now, I wish there was a visual effects breakdown for it, but I can only assume, again, it starts with whatever could be filmed with man in suit. There might be some fire elements. There's likely to be a lot of digital simulated fire elements. And then compositing just nailed this sequence. But oh my God, that fire sequence is spectacular, isn't it?
It is. Like, yeah. And, I mean, if a breakdown shows up in the meantime, I'll put it on the video anyway.
Sure.
Because sometimes we have a few weeks between the recordings and the launch of the episodes. But it's some of the best fire I've ever seen. I saw this thing in 4K and my God, it's just looks the simulation and the fire. Again, we have no knowledge if it's practical with augmentation or just CG with a little bit of fire. We have no idea because there was no breakdowns. They fooled me. It looks all real. It looks absolutely photoreal. It's absolutely stunning. So if they put him on fire, then they put him on fire because it looks that good. I was shocked. I don't even know who did this. I would love to praise them. Who did this? Like, do we know? Do we even know?
So good. It's so good.
It's very well made and so difficult because you have a full performance of him inside that suit, assuming they had to do the full CG body and then replicate his performance. Yeah, yeah.
It's lovely work. I also like, and we just briefly mentioned it, the Mind Layer moment with Max.
Yeah.
And part of that isn't just the song or the slow-mo side of it. It's actually seeing how it was filmed, which was largely on blue screen, or at least some very partial sets there, Hugo. And then some really nice simulations, again by Rodeo, for all this stuff going on in the background, matching with what seems to be a very slow-mo camera. I'm going to say it right now, apart from the fire sequence, that's actually one of my faves from season 4.
Yeah. No, it is a beautiful sequence. Also, the design of it and the art direction of it, the redness and the look of it is really beautiful as well. And the sound effects as well, the clock always ticking and the father clock. It's a really cool scene. Very well achieved as well. They had actual liquid on the floor so that we would have the liquid interacting with the feet of Sandy. And then, of course, my massive blue screen. But there was enormous parts of the practical set that was constructed, including the staircase and including a lot of parts that were hanging. Obviously, there's a bunch of it in full CG, especially when it starts falling down. But of course the smoke and really love the cloud when it opens up to see them trying to save her. No, it's a beautiful sequence. It's so funny to see the behind the scenes where they're like constantly hammering how practical it was, and then she's even the actress saying, "Hey, it was so cool, I was there, and it was all of it was there." And then while they're saying this, there's a shot of her running on blue screen, and there's nothing there. There's nothing there, and they're saying that there was so many things there. Anyway, I love these moments. I love these moments, and maybe someday I'll do videos about this thing, about pointing out these beautiful behind the scenes that point out bullshit everywhere. But this, I don't want to go back to that conversation. This sequence is also one of my favorites, Ian, by far. Like this show has so much visual effects. We could spend here for 5 episodes, but these 2 parts, especially the mind layer, is just in terms of design and practical and the way it was shot, really beautiful. And to make it even more complex, you also have CG tentacles as well on the whole thing. And it's really funny, isn't it? Because they had extensive wire works to even bring her up and attach her to the walls, wasn't it?
They did. And that's a hallmark of Stranger Things from 1 through to 4, is we tend to jump on the practical effects and the visual effects, but there's a heap of stunts that goes on, choreography as well, because actually I wanted to jump, Hugo, to the prison fights that seem to happen largely with Hopper and the Demogorgon. I suppose we've seen it before, you could argue, in a way, in terms of Demogorgon, but actually in at least the initial volume, we see so much more of the Demogorgon, right? We really see it up close and in quite long shots. So I just wanted to make sure we praised the stunt work and choreography of getting a fight like that onto the screen, and then the visual effects work on top of that to put a creature in. It worked really well for me.
On daytime, literally. Like, you really see it. It's the first time we see the Demogorgon with full... It's not daytime, but so many flashes and so many lights pointing at them. Now, it's a fantastic shot, especially the oneer. There's like this massive one shot that goes in from person to person being attacked by the Demogorgon. And if you see the behind the scenes, it's really cool because it's all wire work. There's like actual stunts running around and like jumping and getting hit against walls. There's even some accidents that happen, like some stuff comes out of the set. They've even keep it on the film. No, I'm really glad that you've mentioned this. This is some really inspired work coming from Rodeo and coming from ILP as well. My buddies at ILP in Sweden. So it's It's really, really cool. Yeah.
Not enough stuffies though, right, Hugo?
No.
Not nearly enough.
Well, there's like once I see at least one, and I saw like a golf ball as well.
Tennis
Not a tennis ball,
balls
a
on
tennis ball
sticks. I
flying
do
around.
love that stuff too, don't worry.
You've seen all of that. Like I wish that we had an edit of the entire sequence with just those things.
Yeah.
It would have been a lot nicer.
What about Hugo? There's a bunch of different moments depicted in the Upside Down
Yeah.
in season 4. Again, it's so hard to talk about all of these things.
It's too much.
One we wanted to highlight was this crazy one shot that DNEG pulled off, full of bats and full of other things. Again, shot mostly on partial sets, but with blue screen.
Yeah.
I don't know if this particular sequence needed to be a oneer. I mean, sometimes oneers seem to help with like a bit of, anticipation and make it a bit more scary. I'm not sure that it did, but actually it's kind of something I would have liked to have seen on a cinema screen, this oneer, along with some of the other shots. But what did you think of this oneer by DNEG? It was certainly fun.
It was, yeah, and it really complicated to shoot because when you see the actors are basically hitting nothing, they're trying to hit the bats, but there's no bats there, and so you basically just see them running around on the floor with some vines, and there's blue screen around them. There's nothing there. They're just hitting air all over the place. Really incredibly complicated. It's a minute and 6 seconds long. Really long. So it's 96 seconds long. It's really long. You have 3 full CG creatures running around there, basically biting them and running. And there's like the 360 dome of sky as well. It's actually not a oneer. It's as everyone knows, it's actually 5 plates stitched together. So they shot it on five parts, just like they did all the oneers on every film. None of the oneers are really, really oneers. No, I think that DNEG did an amazing job. Actually, DNEG, it's funny because DNEG ended up doing the most iconic shot of the entire show, isn't it? Well, not for you, but and not for me as well, but for everyone else. Everyone loves this shot.
Are you talking about guitar playing? Is that what you're talking about, Hugo? I mean, good on DNEG for doing that, but I am going to be the most controversial I've ever been on the VFX Notes show and say that is the most overblown,
oh my God,
non-fantastic part of the whole series that I am convinced Netflix thought was going to be huge.
Yeah.
And so just pushed it and pushed it. Look, I get it. People liked the song and they started buying it as soon as the show came out, or downloading it on Apple Music. I just wasn't blown away by this at all. I have to be really honest.
No,
I didn't find that so crash hot.
I get it.
Not the visual effects. I mean the actual moment.
Yeah.
I just wasn't
completely get it.
Overdone by.
Yeah. It's a music video. That's why it doesn't work in my view, as well. I also didn't like it. And I felt like I know that people love Master Puppets. Well, no one loved Master Puppets. Now everyone loves Master Puppets. That's fine.
Yeah.
But, that's also the other thing as well, that no one cared about it some people cared, but only the people that really heard metal rock and Metallica and everything. I was one of those kids. I loved Metallica when I was young, but, and I always hang out with the gothic kids and everything. But the funny thing is that now it became a marketing stunt almost. Like I felt it was a bit forced. I felt it was like perfect for it to be a clip on YouTube, which is what it is. They've published it on YouTube, and it's like it became viral. It became a clip on YouTube. It became a clip on Instagram and on Twitter. It felt to me like an edited music video. Also because the entire music is the whole time. It's not like Kate Bush where they go in and out of the music, and they sometimes have an instrumental version and then go out and then go in and go out. It's quite much not. The Kate Bush part is much better constructed than the Metallica part, I think.
I totally agree. And look, I didn't hate it. I just didn't get the hype. But I feel like they chose it as a sequence to hype.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so that's why it gets pushed so much.
I remember I watched the show right away on that day, on the first day that it came out, and a couple of hours later, Metallica was trending on Twitter, and then it was trending on Twitter for weeks. It worked. It worked. Not that Metallica did it on purpose. They didn't even know about it, as they say on the interviews. They didn't know about this sequence. They only sold the song. They didn't know what was going to happen on the song. No one actually, when they sell the songs, they don't know what's. I'm sure if they knew what was going to happen, they would have probably asked for more money. So for this, but yeah. Which actually, it's funny that you say that. It brings me to this point, Ian. Like. I actually watched the show almost in one go, and I watched it on the first minute that it dropped. And I guess I missed some stuff. Didn't I? I guess I missed some stuff because unfortunately I watched it right away. Now we can't see this anymore. We need to wait for the update. We need to wait for the patch for it to come out. Just like a video game, you need to wait for the day one patch.
Well, Hugo, if you watched it today, maybe it would be different in a couple of weeks. What Hugo is talking about, of course, is that it's been publicized, not really hidden, that, they were working on the visual effects right up until release and then continued working on visual effects after release, actually uploading a new version only hours after it got released, and 3 weeks later or something like that, right, Hugo? Is that what we read?
Yeah. Well, the big update was the second day. So that means I missed like 20 something VFX shots that were supposed to be not finished. Not that I noticed, it looked fine. Maybe it was the ones that I saw because I didn't saw the whole thing in a row, of course. But yeah, apparently that happened, and then they kept twinkering with it for the next 3 weeks. Apparently, they've done now this on season 1, 2, and 3 as well. That's what I've now read as well. They went back and tweaked a few things on those seasons as well. I'm glad I have the Blu-rays of season 1, 2, and 3. I actually bought them.
Oh, do you?
So I have a version, I guess, which is now the old version. I did buy them, the special editions, which are in form of a VHS tape. I bought them on HMV. They're really cute and really nice. They have no extras, just the trailer, by the way. But I left them for posterity. But it is... I wanted to talk about this because I felt that this was hilarious, but also not funny at all. Because there's two sides of this for me. First side, of course, I have to hand it over to the visual effects team and the editorial team. Congratulations, because it must have been so difficult to work on such pressure. Must have been so difficult to be pressured to work around the clock to try to deliver on the final day. Not only they were working until the last minute, but then they kept working until 2 weeks later. So congratulations,
and COVID. So that's the big challenge, was working from home. But also the big challenge is this is effectively 6 movies. I mean, more than that, really, in a way.
Well, yeah. If you read the interviews with the editors, they actually had to bring in editors from other shows of Netflix to help out because there were so many shots to replace with editorial, with visual effects, because there's so much visual effects on this show. I mean, I don't have a count this year. Like, we had a count for season 3. There's no count for season 4 yet. But I know that this is now normal, because being a big gamer, I know how this is. The games come out on one day. There's a patch. And sometimes I load up the disc on the first day, and then there's a 100 gig patch to download, So it's like the games don't even come out anymore because what's printed on the disc is not even what the game is going to be. And sometimes the disc is empty. There's not even anything there. So you're basically just buying something to put on the shelf because they keep working, and nothing is released these days. Everything is like beta or not released. So I guess it would have been a matter of time for us to reach the point where film and TV would have been the same. And this happens quite a few times, but I feel it used to be that Netflix didn't allow this. At some point, this was the first time they allowed something like this to happen. I'm a bit worried, not because of the changes. Of course they have all the right to change if they're allowed to, and they can improve their product. That's fine, but I'm a bit worried about the repercussion of never finishing anything, because I, as an artist that work on the industry, I've been working for 22 years. I've never felt that I finished anything. I have always felt that I've ran out of time. And so I ran out of time and I have to deliver. That's it. If we're not going to deliver any time, if we're never going to deliver, when does it end? And this has major repercussions with bidding. It has major repercussions with the scheduling of productions. Because if you're just going to keep on, because all these studios probably thought that the last day would be the last day, right? And then it just kept on going for 3 weeks. That means it has an implication of budget, of money, of other productions that are going to be on hold because of this. I feel that this is a problem. I feel that this is an issue.
It does, and I don't like the idea that artists think they have a finish date of 1 August and have to stay till 20 August, you know, especially if they've booked holidays. That to me is the bit that I see worrying. But Hugo, if they're getting paid to finish shots and do more shots, is that just part of normal change requests and film production? I'm agreeing with you, but I'm also thinking, has it become so normal that it's actually budgeted for? We know that these films now get delivered by DCP to different cinemas around the world with changes, you know.
I know. I'm just...
And this is slightly different to the concept of coming back to a project 10 years later.
Yeah.
Especially if it's to fix up optical effects or something like that. But I guess I thought it was kind of funny here because no one noticed.
No.
You know, that's an interesting thing. Maybe if the artists notice, then that's important. Interestingly, you do hear that when these shows are released week by week, that it is just as down to the wire.
Yeah.
But they also have this kind of grace because because it's week by week. Grace period. So I kind of wonder if actually this is a problem. It might be the impetus for places like Netflix, which release everything in one go, to change that.
Yeah,
maybe.
No, you're right. No, I completely get it. And I feel that the world has changed. You know, I'm from an older generation where things usually were done and then they were done and that was it, because they would have been printed on a DVD, on a Blu-ray, or printed on film. So that's it. Like, what are you going to do? You're not going to do anything else because it's on a disc. Now, obviously, with digital, it opens up a lot of really cool things, because if you've made a mistake, you can fix it. That's great. But I am just a bit worried because this just brings in more work, and it brings more long nights, and it brings more overtime. And I would have been completely fine with this if I knew that all the artists were getting overtime and all the artists were being paid fairly and everyone was having a proper work environment. And I know that that is not true. I'm not saying that this happened on this show, but what I mean is, like, on a lot of shows and a lot of companies, artists are forced to work late. They are forced to change their plans. They're not paid overtime. This is bullshit, in my opinion. And I feel that these studios, they are completely entitled to push this new way of working, but then we need a major shift on how this industry is working so that we actually get better environments of work for this, because no one should suffer the stress of this way. If they are going to know that they're going to continue to tinker with it, then they need to put their money where their mouth is. It's just, I think this is a bigger problem. It's a problem of, please don't leave the comment. I'm not saying that these companies have done that. I have no knowledge of this company specifically. I only have the knowledge of what happens on certain companies and certain shows. Just recently, there's a lot of news about Marvel shows and a lot of people coming out saying what happened on Marvel shows. So I can only talk about what's being published and what's been talked about. But effectively on Marvel shows, this is happening as well. And those people are not working, getting overtime, and they're not really being paid properly. And I think this is a major issue. And I feel like when we're on set, and if the thing gets delayed, everyone on set is going to continue to be paid while they stay another day to shoot, And I feel that our industry needs to evolve from this so that So then we can all do this because, yeah, it is cool that you can patch films. That's actually awesome. If you think about it, what the world that we live in, that we can actually change a film. It's amazing. Like if you start thinking about it from a technology point of view, it's mind-blowing. So many films came out with mistakes, with problems, with issues, and now you can just fix it. That's cool. That's really cool. Obviously has some implications in terms of archiving, but because there's never a version. But I think we've passed that. I guess. I guess we're living on a different world now.
Yeah, I mean, this discussion covers all areas from the coffee cup in Game of Thrones to what we're talking about right now, which is late edition of stuff. And your thing, Hugo, right correctly, is the impact on artists. Now, I totally agree. The only thing is, let's hope that the impact on artists is that it's just a continuation of the work.
Yeah.
One of the reasons this has happened is that we've hit this crazy period after COVID where there's so much content being made and it's been tricky working from home. And yes, there's sort of a shortage of studios and artists to do the work. So they're hammered at the moment. Now, the problem is it probably won't get better quickly. So there do need to be things put in place to make things better. And we don't need to talk about this, but there's obviously the crazy problem of no unions and VFX kind of being on this stratosphere, which is very different from other areas of filmmaking.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, all of those things combined to make what has happened happen. And guess what, Hugo? The worst thing is, it's not the worst thing. One of the bad things is we can barely keep up with all the content that's being released. It's definitely not the worst thing. I'm joking about that.
We're now going to start doing that as well. We're never going to deliver a show. We're just going to keep retweaking it and patching it and never deliver the episode.
You should edit this 3 times before or after you release it.
Yes, and then publish all 3 versions and just remove the other one, put version 2 in, and never mention version 1 existed. Just say, no, this is the version we released. What are you talking about?
I like that. Well, Hugo, we probably should wrap it up there, but I mean, one of the problems with this season 4 is there's just so much visual effects work, and we can't talk about it all. I really like the young 11, which is basically a shot with a young performer, but also Millie Bobby Brown. Yeah, amazing work by Lola there. Some other great work from companies like Digital Domain and Scanline and ILP, who we have mentioned, but they did like a plane crash and things at the end of the season.
Yeah. With this massive
it's just full on, this series, isn't it?
Yeah, and let's not all forget the amazing Vecna's victims, the mangled bodies. Oh my God.
Whoa. Oh my gosh.
When I first saw that, I thought, man, this is heavy. This is pretty big stuff. It's almost as heavy as the goo on season 3. Now, this is really amazing work Rodeo did. Rodeo, and I did not, man, I kid you not, they had to research broken bodies and incidents and accidents and bruises. You imagine the artist that had to do the reference for this. My God, he must have not slept well on those days. They were
horrible. Exploding rats last season, so they had to look at some pretty crazy stuff.
I know, but you know what happens? Like, if you start researching too much of those things online, you're probably going to get the FBI on your door. So it's going to be a bit tricky. Like, when are you going to tell them, oh yeah, I'm working on a show? No, those shots are massive, man. They're horrible with the eyes popping and yeah, there is so many, and not everything has even been out. Like, there's more, there's the helicopter falling down, there's a ton of visual effects happening with 11 inside the tanks and everything. There's a lot of other things that we didn't even mention. Now, the utification of 11 is really good work. You mentioned that it was done with the egg as well, wasn't it? We've talked about the egg before.
Oh, yeah. Lola has this amazing light rig that they use, and obviously a very bespoke compositing process, essentially using flame and some other techniques to do that work. And I think here, I was kind of in disbelief when I did my interview with the VFX team about how they did that, because I just wasn't sure. Like, and you know, having covered lots of Lola's work, it surprised me how, even then, surprised me how good it was. So,
Everyone goes and go and check out our episode on Free Guy. We talk extensively about the same thing, about the egg technology. There's a lot of behind the scenes on there. No, Ian, it's impossible. It's impossible. This is too big. We would have to have volume 1 and volume 2.
A 2.5-hour episode. No, that's all right. Well, look, thank you everyone for joining us for our series on Stranger Things 4. In particular, thanks again to the sponsors, our Patreon supporters, and people who like and subscribe. Hugo might be pointing one of those out right now. But yes, Hugo, always a pleasure to talk to you, and to do a whole series on this has been really fun. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Always lovely talking with you, Ian. And thanks, everyone. Yeah.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.
Bye.